I was tired of being disrespected by customers, being called the N-word, the various versions of the N-word by strangers. And there was nothing I could do. There was little I could do. I'm working for a financial institution and I'm not even making 60K to deal with this disrespect? Absolutely not. We're doing this. Hello, my name is Gerard Henry. I worked for Capital One for almost 11 years. I quit this August of 2025. I grew tired of being disrespected, operating within a poorly managed organization, and honestly, the pay didn't make sense with all we dealt with. So let's talk about some things. In this video, I'm going to discuss some of the roles that I held while working for this organization. It's also important that I discuss work metrics and work politics. So I started my career at Capital One as a bank representative. Not even a year into that role, the company did away with that department. One half went to our military servicing department, while the other half of us, we went to dispute operations. I was in that role for maybe about a year or two. The company did another realignment and they decided to merge fraud and disputes into one organization. Dispute operations had to learn fraud and fraud analysts had to learn disputes. It was a lot. It happened so fast. There were new tools that we had to learn, new systems, and just new work altogether. Maybe another 2 years in that role, I was then promoted to work in our escalating queues as an account manager, where we essentially dealt with your tier 2, tier 3 escalating calls. As an account manager, we wore a lot of different hats. In this role, especially dealing with escalated calls and trying to manage those cases, you're heavily regulated. You're micromanaged, and it is what it is. You're working in these really strict conditions, making sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's. And you better believe me, management, they're going to pick your call, pick your casework apart. And it's not a fun environment. It's very stressful, and you're going to dread coming into work the next day. You're dealing with calls back to back to back to back. In my role, I primarily dealt with customers front facing, our upset customers. Typically, they were calling in regards to their fraud or dispute claim. They typically were not happy with the outcome and or their case was mishandled. It was my job to find a solution and figure out what went wrong or uphold the company's policies. With that being said, we dealt with a lot of unhappy customers, extremely rude, constantly being cursed at. I know words, typically they're just words, but honestly, they can have some effect on you. So that was one side of it, right? Dealing with incompetent, mean adults that are constantly belittling you. And on the other side of that, you're dealing with untrained agents. My department, we were a dumping ground for various departments within Capital One. Typically, agents would call in and it would be just a simple help desk, which that's not what my department is for. We're not a floor supervisor, but we had to take those calls and try and assist agents. But a lot of it, they just weren't properly trained. This was feedback that we would submit to upper management. It was just a really, just bad, poorly operated. And so you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with agents, you're dealing with all these systems and tools that constantly malfunction, and the company lack of accountability is mind-blowing. You can't be stern and respectful because you're going to run into issues. You have to be ultra fake, ultra positive with a sprinkle of manipulation. Even then, if you're able to turn around that call and provide the customer with a good outcome, even if the customer is happy and thrilled with at the end of the call, management still had the power to say, you could have done better. So you're constantly going to deal with BS like that. So it's a lot. You're dealing with customers, you're dealing with your agents that you're trying to support being heavily regulated, micromanaged, you're dealing with poor pay. It's hard to utilize your paid time off. I have a message of my manager gaslighting me for being sick and using my paid time off. Team meetings are such a waste of time. And it's really disappointing and almost embarrassing. I would be so embarrassed. And instead of focusing on up training or making sure everyone was familiar with the various systems that we use, talking about different tasks that we need to be aware of, we're talking about Susan's dog or someone's grandkid that's running in the back of the Zoom meeting, or we're talking about the weather. The things that we discussed in our team meetings that were such a waste of time and non-productive absolutely infuriated me. And the projects. There were several projects that I tried to create where I'm developing training material or helping the agents within my department gain access to pivotal systems that we utilize on a day-to-day basis, making sure everyone was aligned when it came to various processes in both fraud and disputes, and just making sure that everyone within the department was on one accord. But no, the department doesn't care about that. Instead, they want you to raise your hand and take ownership of send emails to someone when it's their birthday, or the morale committee, the pointless morale committee. Who's going to own our childish jam board where you can post stuff relating to your team, just stuff that had nothing to do with the job. Those were the projects that management wanted you to be a part of. Madness, absolute madness. So if you like arts and crafts and doing middle school type projects, this is the role for you. In this role, you have to perfect your communication. You're dealing with that person that just got out of jail. You're dealing with foreigners, you're dealing with lawyers, you're dealing with business owners, internal partners, the real account managers. I can't tell you how many times I assisted with relationship managers that are phoning me for assistance. Keep in mind, these guys are making 60, 80, 90K working at our headquarters, so they're probably making much more than that. And here I am doing all this work and I'm struggling to make 60K. And so dealing with that, you're a support to various agents across various departments, dealing with these agents that are poorly trained and not handling these calls or cases appropriately really affects me, the individual, and it's going to segue into work metrics, which is really important when you talk about being miserable at a job. And then we're absolutely going to discuss work politics and how clever Capital One is when it comes to utilizing the economy to really make associates' lives hell. It's all for the stakeholders.